Welcome back. Today we'll be reading from A Time for Miracles, Chapter 5. John began to grow. He became like another brother to me. My father continued to rail against Zechariah. "Why do you continue to spend your time at that house?" he questioned me one day. "You know that the only influence that man can be is a bad one." I dared not question my father's word. I had not yet reached the age of manhood. I was just, in fact, at the onset of my synagogue school. I was learning the rules by which we lived as Jews. I was learning to read and to write. As the son of a priest, I was also learning all the rituals that led to the atonement provided by the Most High for His people. Still, I enjoyed the time spent at John's house being the brother, the uncle that he had never known. Mother knew what a dilemma I was in, for she knew also that I believed in the miracle that was John's birth. She stepped in on my behalf. "Lim, let the children play. If Zechariah is such a bad person as you say, then certainly the new baby will need such upstanding children as our own to keep him from following his father's misguided footsteps." "My great concern is not for their boy, Rachel," Father replied. "No, I am concerned more about how the old man might be of more influence than he already is." Father spoke of the fact that Zechariah, by default, was one of the teachers at the synagogue school where my brother and I were attending. There wasn't much that he could do because only he and one or two of the other priests held on to the idea that John was more of a curse on the old couple than a blessing in their twilight years. Truth to tell, my favorite lessons fell from the lips of old Zechariah. His eyes held a light that none of the other priests could muster. His smile held more of the life of a much younger man than even my father. And when he taught the lessons about God and his relationship with his people Israel, the history came to life in the telling. Aside from that, it took only a word or two from the students for the teacher to get caught up again in the telling of his personal visit with an angel. Some of the boys brought up the subject to get Zechariah off track and chasing rabbits, as it were. As for me and my brother, along with a couple of the older boys in class with us, we longed for the days when Zechariah would retell the encounter. We asked questions about the angel, about the message, but mostly about the experience he had being unable to speak, but knowing the outcome of the whole ordeal. We wanted to know more about John. Why had the angel chosen that name? What did Zechariah think that his birth meant? Could we be in store for more miracles? "That I do not know, my children," Zechariah would say. "This I do know. Having a visit with the messenger of the Most High is not a little thing, nor is it always an easy one. Why, in my encounter not so very long ago, I discovered the result would be almost a year without the benefit of my tongue. Mind you, I'll never be able to replace the joy, the ecstasy of the blessing that resulted even through my doubtfulness. May I tell you of the miracle that God brought?" He knew the answer, of course. We nodded and our eyes widened. We knew that he would not only regale us with more of the story of the angel, but it would include new and uncharted information. The only drawback was that it might also lead to a lesson. No matter. It was a lesson that would be well worth the time taken to tell and to learn it. "When the messenger comes," he began, "you will cringe with fear. I am unable to describe the spectacle that visited me, but I know that he spoke. When he spoke, it was without words, straight to my heart. And yet it was with words of comfort, words that brought stillness to my heart, And then a new fear took its place. The miracle about which the angel spoke was one that was beyond my scope of understanding. But today you can visit my house and see the miracle that was pronounced. His name is John. Today you can hear the evidence of the miracle that is mine, for I speak to you today because the Lord's word was true. Of this I can assure you. The Lord's word is always true, even when it seems unfathomable and extraordinary. Especially when it is unthinkable, then the Lord's word is true. Today I am a father. Why, I'm old enough to be your grandfather, your grandfather's father, perhaps even your grandfather's grandfather. And here I am with the miracle of life running through my home. And mark this, to young men and men to be, mark this, young men and men to be, John will one day do great work for the Maker. His place will be next only to that of the Messiah who is to come. And we marked his words.